It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show getting underway for another day on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello and welcome to your Monday afternoon. May I be the first to say a good afternoon. It's gorgeous outside. It's a lovely fall day. Couldn't ask for much more. High of about 82 degrees or thereabouts. Maybe it's a little bit hot. I don't know. Actually, let me take it back. I have no idea what the high is going to be today. It's somewhere in the 80s, I assume. And it's absolutely gorgeous. At least it has been since I've been out and about. And I hope that you're availing yourself of the nice weather, whether you're inside, outside, at work, at home, in your automobile, wherever you may be. Thank you for being a part of the Matt Murphy Show and Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I hope to make you proud. I hope to do you proud at some point over the next 180 minutes. It is episode 422 of our proceedings on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can find us on the radio, of course. You can find us streaming just about anywhere that you download streaming. We're there. You can also find us on the TV, Super Talk TV up and running, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and today, Headless Bell has entitled our Twitter episode, our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch episode, as I screw this up, take two. Today, Bell K has entitled Super Talk TV episode 422. What?
Matt Murphy Show. Sorry, no Nazis invited on the program.
That's true.
Noon to 3 p.m.
We don't. I mean, I guess they could call up if they wanted to. But we're not going to invite you, and we're certainly not going to applaud your presence.
Yeah, no standing ovations for you.
As did Justin Trudeau, Vladimir Zelensky, amongst others. Did they think we would notice? Yeah, I mean, did someone not think that someone would notice that the dude fought for the Nazis?
You've only got two sitting chiefs of state there. They probably didn't have the security that tight.
I imagine this conversation. Hey, during the proceedings, we've got a Canadian resident that fought for Ukraine during World War II, and we'd like to honor them. You know how they do at these State of the Union addresses in the United States of America, where someone will stand up and everyone will applaud. And we've got this guy. He's 98 years old. He's a World War II veteran. It's super cool. And like Smoot in the corner of the room.
Excuse me, sir. Didn't the Ukrainians fight for the Nazis?
Shut up, Smoot! Nobody needs your input. Go get us coffee.
Get in the boxcar.
Okay, everybody down. You see, this is why I host the show and you're the producer. Is that there's a bright line there, and you're like, oh, what line? And you just jump right over it. Smoot, tell me where you got that name. A little suspicious. Yeah, anyway, if you've not heard, I mean, what an embarrassment on the bar. But, you know, America's hat continues to be an embarrassment under Justin Trudeau. I mean, there are great people in Canada. Many of them. I mean, the vast majority of the Canadian people, one would presume, are good, hardworking people, and many of them are very conservative. But they've got Justin Trudeau in power. I mean, we got Joe Biden, they got Trudeau. What are you going to do? All right, lots to get into today. There are many guests on the show. We are almost overloaded with a variety of subjects focused on the government shutdown or the specter of a government shutdown. We will speak with Representative Scott Desjardins coming up at 12:35 this afternoon. Have not spoken to Scott in some time. We'll talk about government shutdowns, the impending possibility of said same, when we speak with him at 12:35. At 2:05 today, as I skip over the 1 o'clock hour intentionally, at 2:05 today, my good friend and 6th Congressional District Representative of the state of Alabama, Gary Palmer, will be here. Occasionally, we lean on Gary to help us understand the thought process of leadership, right? No one on this radio station, to my knowledge, no one in the state of Tennessee, to my knowledge, has the ability to get Representative Kevin McCarthy on the phone to try to understand his position on all of this. And I heard Congressman Andy Ogles this morning on Nashville's Morning News, and I get it. And we'll speak to Desjardins, and I get it. We'll speak to Tim Burchett Thursday. I get it. We'll speak to John Rose tomorrow. I get it. We got to call out for Mark Green, too. And at some point, we'll have Andy back on the show. Andy and I repaired our rift, by the way, for those who missed it. But I want Gary Palmer, as someone that I know and respect, to help me understand where leadership is coming from regarding the impending possibility of a government shutdown. And it's not a government shutdown versus a continuing resolution. I'll let Gary explain all of this to you at 2:05 this afternoon. I think it's important that we hear from him. At 1:05 today, our good friend and former candidate for mayor, Alice Rowley, will stop by. I wanted to speak to Alice about her experience, about what she learned about the city of Nashville, and about what she hopes for the city of Nashville in the aftermath of her run for mayor. I also wanted to thank Alice for presenting a, depending on your point of view, certainly a moderate conservative to conservative position regarding issues that matter to the city of Nashville and the state of Tennessee on the ballot, despite the fact that it was an uphill battle all along. I don't like to forget these folks that get into the battle, that engage in the trenches, especially when it is a losing proposition. And so I wanted to invite Alice on the show. Plus, did you see where the mayor, I think it was Dallas, flipped, became a Republican? How about that?
No, it was the chief of police, wasn't it?
I thought it was the mayor.
Was it? I'll double check it.
Yeah, I'll fact check it too. I've got the story somewhere. But we'll talk with Alice about that at 1:05 this afternoon. Taking your telephone calls all day long, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. That's also the way to get a hold of us via the super text line. That is a feature that we absolutely love, and you're invited to participate in that fashion if you don't make yourself available to your telephone and give us a call.
Yeah, it was Mayor Eric Johnson.
Eric Johnson, mayor of Dallas, flipping to become a Republican. Now, nobody declares in the city of Nashville, so while we assume that if Freddie O'Connell had to declare, that he would declare as a Democrat, there's no form that he has to fill out. But apparently that's not the case in Dallas, and the Dallas mayor has decided that he can't leave the Democrat Party because the Democrat Party has left him, which is what I hear most Democrats say who decide to flip. We'll talk with Alice about that subject, amongst other things, coming up at 1:05. Is everybody excited that the writer's strike is about to be over? Everyone?
Was it still going on?
It was. It was. Did you notice?
I didn't notice nor care.
I did not notice. Honestly, my television viewing involves a lot of YouTube. It involves live events and news, and that's it. I mean, when I watch scripted programming on television, it's because my wife is watching scripted programming on television, or it's old stuff. Like, I was never into, I'll give you an example. And you asked me what I did over the weekend, and there was some of this going on. I never got into Parks and Rec when it was on television.
Yeah.
But I have now gotten into it now that it's in reruns, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It is
I never
top-notch.
watched it when it was new either. And I'm like that with a couple other sitcoms, like Everybody Loves Raymond. I didn't really watch that when it was on. And Mike and Molly, never watched that when it was on.
Everybody Loves Raymond and Mike and Molly, and I know Raymond more than I know the other. But they have the same issue that, according to Jim has, they had the same issue that I felt like Home Improvement delved into. According to Jim was
Jim Belushi.
Jim Belushi,
show? Okay.
yeah. Is that I can only listen to a bumbling husband get yelled at by his wife so much.
That's definitely an issue on Everybody Loves Raymond. That seems to be the focus of the show.
I mean, I don't need that level of reality.
Erica gives you enough of it.
I mean, I'm a bumbling husband, and my dutiful wife yells at me. Well, doesn't yell, but you know what I'm saying. So, yeah, I don't. Those shows, and I'll tell you another show that fell into that category with me. What was the one with, Paul Reiser?
Mad About You?
Mad About You. Mad About You, a lovely little show that eventually they decided that they're going to give him marital problems, and it just ruined it. I mean, just, ugh. What was her name?
Helen Hunt?
I always get Helen Hunt and Holly Hunter mixed up.
Pretty sure it was Helen Hunt.
It's pretty,
Huge chick in Jurassic Park, right?
Helen Hunt was Helen Hunt as good as it gets, right? Same.
I think so.
Same. Sure.
We'll just say it was.
We'll go with it. Also, and not that I'm asking for anything in terms of bumper selections today, Bell, But you know what today is? Give me some horns here as we celebrate our National Day calendar. It is today, Monday, September 25th, 2023. For all who care to celebrate it, it is National One Hit Wonder Day. National One Hit Wonder Day.
I did not know that.
I ask you, Bel K, what is the finest one-hit wonder ever produced? I have a strong number one for myself, and I have a pretty strong number two.
I don't know. You know what? Honestly, I am so into those kind of songs that I would have a hard time picking. I would say either Funky Town.
Oh, Funky Town. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Rocky by
Rocky?
Austin. What was his name? Austin.
You talking about Rocky? I've never been in love before.
Yeah, that song.
Don't know if I can do it. It's an awful, gross, horrible song, and it'll get in your head.
Yeah, it's an earworm. I remember hearing that in the radio when I was like 4.
Hey, spoiler alert, she dies. Anyway, go ahead. She does.
You couldn't leave it for me to find that out on my own.
There is a lyric in that song, Bell. It is the worst lyric possibly ever written in music. You know what it is?
The song is so good. It's so bad it's good. But go ahead.
Rocky, I've never had to die before.
Yeah.
Don't know if I can do it.
Well, we're pretty sure you'll be able to.
I'm pretty sure everyone else has been able to figure it out that's ever lived on planet Earth.
And you will too.
Anyway, you want to know my number two? You want to hold on to it?
No, what's your number two?
My number two best one-hit wonder in the history of one-hit wonders is Putting on the Ritz by Taco.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one.
My number one, and people argue with me about this, but I maintain there was not another hit, is Come On Lean by Dexy's Midnight Runners. They argue there's one other song that made the charts, and I don't even know what it is, but I argue Come On Eileen was their only hit, and it's the best one-hit wonder in history.
I would agree with you that that was their only hit. Maybe overseas they might have had another one, but they didn't hear.
Yeah, no. And what a great song that was. So, you know, if you want to throw some out there, if you're watching on Super Talk TV, you won't hear any of this. But if you're listening on the radio, maybe you'll hear some one-hit wonders if Bel K is of the mind to. Okay, polls on 9/25 of 2023 are useless. Let's understand that. I hope that we know that. But I'm the one that has to call the baby ugly. So when we talk about polls that don't look good for the Republicans, when we talk about polls that don't look good for constitutional conservatives or libertarians like myself, I have to remind you of that. Just as I remind you, when they look bad, never you mind. When they look good, never you mind. Not today, not in 2023. I understand the value of the snapshot, and that's all it is. Polls are Polaroids. Remember that I said that. Put quotes around it. Give me a quote sometime on the radio or whatever. Polls are Polaroids. They are snapshots in time, never to be experienced again. Their worth is to put up on a bulletin board. So when you see polls that are bad in September of 2023, heed no mind. When you see polls that are great in 2023, heed no mind. I don't talk about polls a lot because I don't think a lot about polls. The great Rush Limbaugh taught me this, that there was a time when polling was done in such a way to genuinely glean good information from the general public. And that time is 30 years ago. We're not even close to a time where the polling agencies, and yeah, I include Quinnipiac, and I can't pronounce it, or Rasmussen, and I can't pronounce it, or Gallup, I can pronounce it. I include those polling agencies as well. I think they're soiled. Even those organizations, and if it has an alphabet soup name behind it, forget about it. If it's a poll done by any media organization, it is on the front end to be dismissed. I'm sorry. Those organizations are polling to create headlines. They are not polling for the purpose of polling. They're not polling to try to get good information as to what's going on in the world. They're polling so that they can have a headline after the poll comes out. And anytime they have a headline, or if their desire is to have a headline, right? So there was, back in the day, a time when polling was generally to get the sense of where America is on a particular candidate or a set of candidates or a particular issue. Now they are polling to create news. Washington Post and ABC, they're polling to create news. And I understand they don't like the news they got in the poll, but they like that it's news, and they understand there's plenty of time to repair the poll if they don't care for it. And trust me, they don't. What worries the Washington Post and ABC more than anything about this latest poll, and if you've not heard, a poll came out and had Trump up big against Biden. That's all you need to know. What worries them more than anything about this poll, I can assure you, is that the questions were weighted for Biden. So it's probably worse than the 10 points. Americans are smarter than the mainstream media or the political left than they give them credit for. We are. It's one of the, I say it all the time, two of the best things we've got going for us is that they always overplay their hand and we're smarter than they think we are. And Americans are smarter than ABC News or the Washington Post gives them credit for. So they cut through their poll and they told them the truth. ABC News and the Washington Post, they're going to diminish this. They can call it an outlier all they want. It doesn't really matter because it accomplished their goal. I'm talking about it. You're talking about it. Their goal was not to promote Biden or to destroy Trump necessarily, although embedded in the questioning, it is by design to do that. Their goal is to get clicks. And they did. That's what polls are for nowadays. To get readership, to get clicks, to get headlines. So I understand there are some people that live and die by them, and I'm not begrudging those people. And, you know, I'm not casting aspersions at anyone that boils down the numbers because some people do it in a way that makes sense. Some people do it in a way that they glean good information out of it. I am dismissive of polling because they come from corrupted organizations, and their most valuable purpose for the polling organization is to get you to look. And if that's their goal, it's not for me. That said, I came to an epiphany. I often come to epiphanies over the weekend. Sometimes it involves brown water. You know what I'm saying? We need to lay off Joe. You, me, Mandis, Wilson, Hand, all of us. That's Mr. President, you're going to like this next segment. It's 1222 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So you're looking around your home and you're thinking about sprucing up prior to the holidays. Maybe you've got family coming over for football games and they're looking around going, boy, your house is nasty. Look at all this nastiness on your walls. Did you see the paint outside fading and chipping? I know that's what people think when they come into your home. And if that's the case, you need to do something about it. You need to go to Nashville Painting Company, talk to my man Jeremy Reeves, get him over for a complete color consultation. He'll give you exact scopes and pricing and get to work. If you're looking to spruce up your home and you have a brick home, what about brick lime washing? What about brick painting? I absolutely love it. What about we get that deck stained? What about we get that fence stained? What about we get the interior of your home spruced up for the holidays? It's time, friends, and the only one that I'll recommend is Nashville Painting Company. Jeremy Reeves does it the right way. That doesn't mean they're the most expensive because they're not the most expensive. They are simply the best at what they do. Call Nashville Painting Company today. Now, you can go over to NashvillePaintingCompany.com. That's NashvillePaintingCompany.com, or call them at 615-635-0350. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the best, the one and only Nashville Painting Company. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling, they've been providing relief if your heater's not working properly for years and years now in the Nashville area. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling strive to have 100% satisfaction. That means that they can't miss once. They cannot miss once in terms of satisfying you as a customer. And that is a lofty goal to have. Because if you've been in the business for as long as they have, sometimes the communication breaks down or whatever. But Jeff Eddy strives to keep that satisfaction rate at 100%. That means that he's a smaller company. That means that he ensures that the technician that comes out to your home meets his standard. And that means that he communicates with you exactly what's going on with your heater. He communicates with you if it's time to replace or if there's a possibility to repair. And that level of communication is also key. I trust him in my home. I know that you can trust him in yours. Find Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling on their web, efficienthvac.net, efficienthvac.net, or find them in the phone book, 615-784-4424. Free financing on your next unit. Ask them about all of that. Diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. It's all about efficient heating and cooling. Nope. No. I mean, I know the song, but I could not tell you the artist.
Oh, it's Edison Lighthouse.
1966?
71, I
71.
think.
Okay. Well, there you go. One-hit wonders on the show today. It's National One-Hit Wonder Day. What's your favorite one-hit wonder? Maybe we'll do that a little bit later on. Coming up in about 7 or 8 minutes, we'll speak with Representative Scott Desjardins, obviously regarding the government shutdown, the possibility of government shutdowns. Man, I just pulled up the super text line.
Stop saying possibility. It depresses me. We got to root for it.
Everybody's rooting for it. Everybody's rooting for it.
The impending government shutdown.
I'd like to hear the case for or the case against. And there are a lot of chaos folks out there like me that would love to see it. I'd love to see it because I love to see Washington, D.C. freak out. Because the thing that freaks Washington, D.C. out more than anything is the idea that they're not needed, that they aren't the center of the universe. So I love to see it.
I literally had that same thought in my head as you were building up to saying that.
Yeah, I mean, they want, at their deepest, swampiest level, they insist that they are the center of the universe, and they are not the center of the universe, but they love the illusion of believing that. And this type of government shutdown, especially if it were to be lengthy, would remind them of that case. Would people get potentially hurt in the short term? Sure. Would they get made whole in the long term? Yes. This is why Republicans do not win, though, because once they get a modicum of power, they have an inability not to fight amongst themselves. And the idea that Matt Gaetz and Andy Ogles and Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan or whoever can't get in a room together and work this crap out is baffling to me. Instead, you give a free pass to Democrats as they try to destroy the United States of America from a political perspective, while the media focuses on you fighting amongst yourselves. 615-737-9986 if you have any thoughts on it. Here's my thought on Biden real quick. Let's have fun with the gaffes. Let's add more blunders to Bell K's growing soundboard of Joe Biden blunders. Let's amuse ourselves. Let's occasionally be sad because we had a family member that went through dementia too, and it reminds us of that family member. Well, I'll tell you what, your temper's getting it's getting a lot more noticeable because that's what happens with people with dementia. But folks, from a political perspective, we got to keep Biden in there. Now, I'm on record as saying I don't think he makes it. I don't. Sadly, what is 0121, what are you doing to me, distracting me? I said that Dexy's Midnight Runners saying, come on, Eileen. What did I say? That's what I said. Norman Greenbaum's a good one. Sorry, I just got completely scored. Didn't I say that Dexy's Midnight Runners saying, come on, Eileen?
Yes, you did.
Then why is 0121 going, hey, Dexy's Midnight Runners saying, come on, Eileen?
Bingo.
Oh. I love you, 0121. Thank you. You distracted me. You distracted me like a press conference distracts Joe Biden. I don't know either. He's the best thing we got going for us. He is easily dispatched by any Republican, certainly Donald Trump. And so while we need to have fun with this, we need to lay off impeachment. Impeachment inquiry, fine. Don't go full-fledged impeachment until after the election of 2024. I think it will behoove us to lay off because he will be beaten if he's the nominee. And if you go too hard at him on impeachment, if we get to the bottom of all of the illegal activity that's been going on in the Biden family for these many years, if we do that, the American people will become so aware of it, his poll numbers will dip even further, and the Democrats will replace him. We cannot have the Democrats replacing Joe Biden.
As bad as he is now, he's not going to get better in a year. He will get worse.
Right, which is what we want. Sadly, we have to suffer. America is not going to get better in the short term anyway. The Democrats control the Senate, and they control the White House, regardless of what happens to Biden. We have to suffer in the short term to gain in the long term. That's my message to you. We'll speak to Scott Desjardins in just a moment on Super Talk. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy. And, part of the reason I enjoyed the weekend so much, the wife put together, and I wish that I had gotten her to write this down because I don't know. But she made me, I'm trying to lose a little weight. So she made me some pork cutlets in a crock pot. And she put some spices from Savory Spice on there. Oh, my goodness gracious. They were good. They were good for me. They tasted delicious because of the incredible spice blend provided by Savory Spice. She also does this with broccoli and other veggies like zucchini, broccoli, green peas. She'll spread them out over a thing, put a little bit of olive oil on them, and then sprinkle some deliciousness from Savory Spice. And they've got all of those incredible veggie sprinkles. They've got meat sprinkles. They've got salts of all different types right there available at their two locations. One in L&L Market. My mouth waters just thinking about walking in there. The other is in Franklin, just off the square. Go by and see Holly and David, locally owned and operated. That's important to me as well. The freshest of the fresh when it comes to your spices. Improve that spice game, and you'll improve the food game. And improve the food game with Savory Spice. There's another good one. Falco. All right, one-hit wonder day on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's the little things that get us through the day, right? 12:37, almost 12:38. Thank you for being along with us. We'll get to your calls momentarily regarding government shutdown and the like. And my premise, and several of you disagree with me, and I appreciate that. Look, we can disagree without being disagreeable. We can disagree and talk through this. But I ask the question, is it not in the best interest of the United States of America to have Joe Biden as a candidate in 2024? And if we can have all of the impeachment inquiry we want, but if we go through impeachment, the House is going to impeach the man because they're going to get to a point where they see all of the illegality and wrongdoing committed by him. Bob writes in, love you, Bob, and says, Matt, you're wrong. Impeachment is the right thing to do. You can't have it both ways. And to Bob, I said, call me and convince me. I don't see how a different candidate helps the GOP. And I know we're talking about the right thing to do from a criminal standpoint. Well, impeachment is a political act, so understand, we're talking politics here. We're not talking criminal behavior. If it's discovered that Joe Biden did anything criminal, he needs to be brought up on charges. To talk on all of these things, most importantly, to talk about the possibility of shutdown, we welcome back to the show our 4th District Representative right here in the state of Tennessee, the great Scott Desjardins joins us on the program. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hey, good, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well. Long time no talk. You everything going well in the 4th District?
The 4th District is great. Washington, not so much.
Well, it is the epicenter of the universe, and if you don't believe me, ask anyone in the bureaucracy or the deep state, and they'll tell you such. I believe it's part of the reason that they freak out so much over a shutdown. I understand a shutdown can have some negative impact on citizens in the state of Tennessee. Largely, those folks are always made whole at the end of a shutdown. Tell me where you are in the specter of a shutdown and if you believe that it is almost a fait accompli at this point, Scott.
I believe if the Republican Party can pass a continuing resolution, which I've never voted for in 13 years, that attaches significant border security, then that's a winning message. And if we shut down for a month and we hammer home the fact that we cannot continue with the border as it is, then I think it's a winning message and puts a lot of pressure on the Senate and the House Democrats to do something about this invasion that's taking place.
So the idea there is you keep the different spending packages separate, the 12 spending packages separate. Is that right?
Well, we can't get all 12 done before the end of the month. We're going up tomorrow. We're going to start with 4 appropriations bills. We tried to pass the defense bill last week, but there's a handful of people that brought down the rules, so we weren't able to bring that to the floor. There's a new strategy to try to pass 4 of the 12 this week. That still doesn't get it done, so we would have to have a continuing resolution. Problem in the House is there's about 7 folks, or maybe 9, that will not vote for any CR, even if it attaches border security. So we're kind of stuck in this circular firing squad right now. Again, I get people who don't want to vote for a CR. I haven't voted for one. I will this time if we can focus on the border because I think it's that important. But my fear is that we don't even have the votes as a... What's likely to happen is the Senate, and you've seen Chuck Schumer's already sending a package over to the House that he thinks would pass if Kevin McCarthy puts it on the floor with some Republicans and Democrats, and that would be a clean CR, and it would keep the government open. I see it as a lost opportunity that we should have done a week or so ago to get our messaging out because we're 1/3 of the process. We only have the House. We don't have the Senate. We don't have the White House. So they're going to tell us to go pound sand. But we would at least be able to tell the American people, stations like yours and other outlets who are honest will talk about how serious this 7 million people, including terrorists and fentanyl, are coming into our country and how that needs to be stopped. But I'm not sure the train hasn't already left the station.
I know that I'm asking the wrong person because I know you're not responsible for this, Congressman, but you are one of 435. And it begs the question, how did we get here recognizing that September 30th, the date on the calendar never changes? And if it's a timing issue, which is what leadership seems to be arguing, McCarthy and others are saying, look, we don't have the time to pass the appropriations separately. Well, then it leaves folks like me and Tennesseans to scratch our heads and say, wait a minute, you're in charge of the calendar. Did you not see this coming in July?
Yeah, I mean, if you want the true inside baseball, this has stymied me ever since I've been in Congress because you said this date doesn't change. It's there in perpetuity, and we've never had it done. Every year we face the government shutdown, and people are probably just immune to it. But, I've been involved in two shutdowns, 2013 and 2018. And both times it seems like we came out on the short end because we have about 10% of the messaging. The state-run media, CNN and ABC and NBC, all attack Republicans for just what you said. It hurts people. They'll say that people won't get their Social Security, military won't get paid, Head Start won't happen, and it's Republicans' fault. But what happens in a slim majority like we have right now, we only have a 4 or 5 vote margin. So when we bring forth an appropriation bill, just like the defense bill, which is the easiest one to pass, DOD always passes. There's some people that don't like Ukraine funding, and that's fine. And there's some people that had other problems with it. But the point is, we couldn't even get that bill to the floor for a vote because enough people were voting to take down the rule, which is a procedural vote, to get it to the floor where we debate it and vote on it. So when you can't even pass the easiest appropriation bill, the DOD, then the problem lies within the conference. It's not necessarily the speaker's fault or leadership's fault. If you can't unite as a Republican conference and say, okay, we're gonna pass this. It may not be everything we like, but it's going to be a Republican bill. Then you get nothing. And right now, it's looking like we're going to get nothing.
Well, and I wanna make clear, and I'm not here to defend Kevin McCarthy, but it's my understanding, my memory, Scott, and you tell me if you remember it wrong, differently, was that if John Boehner or Paul Ryan was dealing with this, they would run over to Nancy Pelosi and get votes from the Democrats and make concessions with them. Am I not right?
Well, that's happened. Yeah, that's happened every time except the two shutdowns we did. The first one was with Boehner over Obamacare in 2013, and the second one was with Paul Ryan, I believe. And gosh, I can't even remember what that was.
But the point is that to his credit, and some of the hardliners don't want to. McCarthy's not doing that. He's
trying. He's trying to make it happen. He has been bending over backwards to try to bring everybody together. We had closed door meetings last week that was very personal, very family discussion type closed door meetings where everybody got up, bared their soul, which Boehner and Paul Ryan wouldn't make people do. It's like, come to the mic and tell everybody where you stand. And in a way, you'd think it'd bring us closer, and I thought it did, and I thought we had a chance to pass the DOD that second time, but yet two other people peeled off and voted against it. So I would say I'm not defending Kevin either, but I would say he is trying harder than Boehner or Ryan. He's trying to make things happen, and I guess when people talk about vacating the chair, Matt Gaetz and others who say, well, we're going to bring McCarthy down, the problem is there's no exit strategy with that. They tried to do it on January 3rd, voted against him 15 times. There was no one else that could even get 20 votes. And so if they vacate the chair, then we look more dysfunctional than we do already because there's no one Steve Scalise could do what Kevin McCarthy's doing, but he still wouldn't satisfy the 5 to 10 people in our conference right now that expect nothing less.
Well, because they don't want, and I understand the hard line that they're taking. I understand the point that they're making is we have to get our spending in order. We have to do something about it. And I appreciate, that's the frustrating thing about this. And I think you're right there with me, Scott, that I appreciate the point that they're making, but I don't understand the end game that they expect because there are too many moderate, squishy Republicans on the other end that you would lose if you boot McCarthy and expect to get some. Who else do you get in there?
Right. That's what I say. I've been probably one of those stubborn, hard-nosed people on CRs and spending because we need to be. We see our country going bankrupt. But you don't have to compromise your principles to change your strategy. And that's why I'm willing to vote for a CR because I think the border is a winning issue and we need to unite and we need to take what messaging win we can get. Whether or not it resolves anything, we're going to heighten the awareness of this problem. And that's what we need to do as a conference. So I know the folks, the whole house has been happening in the past. Look inside yourself, look at the current picture. We have a 4-seat majority, and all we can really do is message because we don't have the White House, we don't have the Senate. So let's have a winning. And then when we go into 2024, people can say, do we want the Democratic message? Or
Scott,
what they're offering us?
Scott Desjardins either proving that he's in the middle of Tennessee in the 4th District in the middle of nowhere with no cell service, or that he's artificial intelligence. One of the two. Sorry, your phone was breaking up there for a second, Scott. So we missed part of what you said. Let me ask you this. Are we currently under regular order?
We are currently under regular order, but it can vary in a hurry based on rules. Because
what I've been told is that part of what has quagged the process, part of it is, we don't look at a calendar, and once again, many will suggest that I'm defending McCarthy here. I'm just observing part of what is quagging this up is that as we are under regular order, members such as yourself have the opportunity to offer amendments on the floor, and you have 12 appropriation bills, but the count that I heard earlier this morning was you have over 400 amendments on those that all have to be debated.
That's correct.
So that's going to slow the process down. And there's seems to be all finger pointing going from the hardliners toward McCarthy, and no one's asking the hardliners the question, what responsibility do you have in this in slowing the process down to the point that we can't get it done?
Yeah, and I think you're right. You have to have, again, that situational awareness of what is possible. And right now there's people asking for the impossible. We have to take the win that is in front of us, and that's a messaging win on the border. And so it may be too late to see that goal achieved, but, we still got a week to fight, and we'll see what happens.
Are you guys up there next weekend? Throughout the weekend, do you think?
I'm guessing we'll be there through the weekend. So, we obviously need to stay until we get it done. So, unless there's some kind of breakthrough, there's a chance that there'll be a procedural vote with the Democrats to pass clean CR. And if that happens, then, we lost an opportunity because of infighting, and that's not a good look.
And final thought on the concept of everything breaking down. Was it a tactical mistake for the speaker to recess and allow members to go home during August?
Yeah. Well, August has been a traditional recess for as long as I know, but yes, it probably was. It wasn't just August. We were really out for almost 6 weeks, and I think that there was some lost opportunity.
Representative Scott Desjardins, always good to catch up with you. Thank you for being with us, and we'll talk again very soon. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, that's Scott Desjardins, by the way. I always mispronounce the first syllable of his last name. 615-737-9986. That's weedy, right? But I think this needs to get weedy. I understand the propensity because I share it in saying burn it down, shut it down and burn it down, to hell with it. But that's not a permanent answer, especially considering we don't get a fair fight here. The media sides with the Democrats. So invariably, I've seen this before, right? If a Republican's in the White House and there's a specter of a government shutdown, the Republican in the White House gets the blame. If the Democrats control the House and the Senate and there's a threatened shutdown, the Republicans get the blame. If the Republicans control the House and the Senate, the Republicans get the blame. If the Republicans control the House but the Democrats control the Senate, guess who gets the blame? The Republicans get the blame. Hell, if I controlled everything and I shut it down, the Republicans would get the blame. And I'm not a Republican. The media is always going to blame the Republicans for anything and everything, and sadly, half the country get their information from the biased media. You have to take that into account. I know you don't want to, but you have to. So when we say all or nothing, and I just had 1326 on the super text line said, Jordan for speaker. Okay, I would be in favor of that. And all or nothing. And my question to 1326 is, all of what? And it's a serious question. What do you want? What do we want? You can't, if you want independent votes on all 12, you can't get there by the end of the month. So if what you're asking for, and I could get behind this, is shut the government down, pass the spending bills independently, and then open the government back up. Okay. But the Senate's going to flick it right back to you and allow the government to be shut down and blame the Republicans. Then what? Then what? It is not a defense of McCarthy to state the truth. I understand and appreciate where Ogles and Gates and others are coming from when it comes to our ridiculous spending. I preach that as the number one issue facing the United States of America on a daily basis. Headless Bell knows this. But I don't know this is the way to fix the railroad. 1253, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Efficient heating and cooling. Jeff Eddy understands heating units. He understands AC units. And he understands this time of year where things are crazy, right? And in the afternoon, you got the AC on. And now's the time of year that in the morning, before you know it, you'll have the heater on and you'll smell that smell. You want to not smell that smell, right? That smell means that there's dust and dander and mold and nastiness and things that you don't want in your home coming out of your vents. Well, it's time to get it cleaned. Get that heater maintenance with Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Allow him to help you. Efficient Heating and Cooling has been helping people just like you for years now, and they can help you as well. Plus, you can trust them in your home. They come when they say they're going to come. They do what they say they're going to do, and they get out of your hair. They never charge you overtime, which is nice. Plus, they're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and Elite Pro partner with Rheem. EfficientHVAC.net is the website, EfficientHVAC.net. Or call 615-784-4424. 784-4424. Call today for our friends at Efficient Heating and Cooling.
from ABC News. I'm Daria Albinger. A U.S. senator accused of taking bribes is facing growing calls to resign. The New Jersey Democrat insists he is staying put.
Senator Bob Menendez firing back Monday at his federal indictment and those calling for him to step down from his office.
Instead of waiting for all the facts to be presented, others have rushed to judgment because they see a political opportunity for themselves or those around them.
Menendez was indicted last week, accused of accepting lavish gifts, gold, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash in exchange for using his influence to bolster U.S. assistance to Egypt and benefit 3 New Jersey businessmen. Justin Finch, ABC News, Washington.
The Writers Guild of America could vote as soon as tomorrow on a new contract which ended a nearly 5-month-long strike.
I've been crying for the last 15 minutes. My phone has been blowing up. I just feel indescribable joy.
That's a strike captain Bill Wolkoff. SAG-AFTRA, the actors union, is still on strike. President Biden will join a United Auto Workers picket line when he visits Michigan tomorrow.
He's the only president who stands up and just solidly says, I'm a labor man, I'm a union man.
Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who joined striking workers today at a GM plant in his state. Millions of Americans are under alert for heavy rain and gusty wind as what was once tropical storm Ophelia makes its way through the Northeast.
We've got just about 24 hours left with the remnants of Ophelia, so that will eventually move out, but there's some coastal flood alerts from central coastal Connecticut down through New York City, over throughout Long Island, and then rip current alerts from South Jersey and the shore there all the way into the Delaware Bay. So most of Delaware with the coastal flood alerts.
ABC's chief meteorologist Ginger Z. Sophia Loren recovering from leg surgery after taking a fall at her home in Switzerland. You're listening to ABC News.
Here we are. Here we go. Hour number 2 starts right now. Super Talk 99.7 WTN this Monday, September 25, 2023. Our first full work week in the fall season. Happy to have you with us. Whatever time you're able to give us, certainly appreciate that. Gary Palmer, a good friend of mine. He represents the 6th Congressional District. He is also the Republican Party policy chairman in the House of Representatives. That means that he's in leadership along with McCarthy and Elise Stefanik. And is Stefanik still there? Yeah, I guess she is. And Steve Scalise and others. And we will speak with him at 2:05 about what leadership is saying regarding the impending government shutdown, the possibility of a government shutdown. That's coming up at 2:05. A liberal group by the name of Progress Now is spending, I'm not making this up. It seems like I am, I'm not. $70 million in an advertising campaign, a push to make Biden into Joe Cool. They are attempting to reshape the image of Joe Biden for the purpose of turning him into a cool octogenarian with dementia, somehow. I have more on that coming up in just a couple of minutes. We talked about the polls in the first hour. I don't believe that polls on 9/25 of 2023 really mean anything. I think they're relatively useless. However, the Trump lead over Biden is real, and it is why I believe that the best course of action for the Republicans is to continue to point out to the American people the dog and pony show that is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and continue to work the impeachment inquiry, continue to push that angle, and continue to get to the facts, but do it slowly and methodically. The faster you try to work that process, the more quickly Democrats can create a response. And that response might involve getting rid of Joe Biden. And if that's the case, that's bad for the American people, because anybody but Joe has a better shot of beating Trump or anyone else in the 2024 session. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you listening. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I've got more conversation about the White House. I want to talk about America's mayors, however. Have you seen what Brandon Johnson's doing in Chicago? So, Brandon, somehow, Lily Ledbetter, not Lily Ledbetter. What was her name? Lily Ledbetter was the Goodyear lady. What was the?
Lori Lightfoot?
Lori Lightfoot. Lily Ledbetter. Lori Lightfoot was a liberal mayor in Chicago, and she was soft on crime and got softer as her tenure went on. And the people of Chicago noticed, and so they said no thank you to Lori Lightfoot. And instead, they elected someone more liberal than Lori Lightfoot, who was going to be softer on crime than Lori Lightfoot. I don't understand the logic. Well, now Brandon Johnson is responding to other aspects of Chicago life that have everything to do with crime. And instead of doubling down on the idea of supporting the police officers of the Chicago Police Department and suggesting that maybe we were a little heavy-handed when it came to the defund the police movement, they're doing other things to combat crime in other ways. What I mean is, so crime has led to residual impact outside of the murders and the assaults and everything else going on, the carjackings on Chicago city streets. Businesses have decided to leave Chicago. One of the business models that has left the inner city of Chicago are grocery stores. They cannot continue to put up with the rampant shoplifting that's going on. And so it becomes a point where, forget about lost leaders. They're literally losing 25% in those inner city stores, and that has to be balanced against price increases in all of their stores. I'm talking about a variety of different grocery chains. And so Chicago has become a food desert. Bel K, you want to guess what Brandon Johnson's solution to the food desert is?
Food lines.
In a way, you're correct. He is offering the idea of opening up government-owned grocery stores.
Yeah, that should be a disaster.
Haven't they tried this in other places? And, well, we'll talk more about that as we talk about America's mayors with an individual that I wanted to become America's next mayor, but it did not work out. But I spoke to her via text over the weekend, and I said, would you mind coming on and kind of put a little post-mortem on the political race that was the mayor's race in the city of Nashville and offer your thoughts about the future of Nashville and the future of the United States of America when it comes to our major cities and how many of them are controlled by leftist thinking and how we kind of get that back. And to her credit, she agreed. Alice Rowley is joining us in studio to talk about a variety of subjects, not the least of which is her. Hey, Alice, how are you?
Good. I'm doing pretty well. I brought you a cup.
Oh, look!
I brought you a cup.
I will cherish this.
Yes, my fifth grade teacher, Sarah Annie Zell, made those for me, and you haven't lived until your fifth grade teacher is one of your best campaign volunteers and makes you cups.
So was there a consideration?
See, this is why I lied to her and said I wasn't going to vote for her because she don't bring me no swag.
Oh no!
See. Was there ever, did you have a discussion with your fifth grade teacher about, was there ever a possibility of putting another I in there, like Rowley-ing?
I didn't really ask.
Rolling.
We had
so
many creative, just homegrown things pop up in the campaign, and you want to control enough in a campaign, but you don't want to control it so much that it can't just bust out and win, right? And she wanted to make these cups, so we didn't stop her.
Man, so many good ideas now. I roll with Rowley.
Yeah. We had fun at the racetrack with some rolling.
Yeah, true.
We did. Yeah, we did. But thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. It is a positive for me. I know it's a little comfort to you, and maybe it's a negative in your bank, but it is a positive for me that I got to know you.
Well, thank you. Yes, it was great. I did. I really did enjoy the journey of this, and I think I'd mentioned it is hard to lose, but it is also we also made history. Look, in the last 50 years, only one other person has, like me, never been elected before and made it to the runoff. That was Phil Bredesen. It took him 3 times to ultimately become the mayor of Nashville. He ran for mayor, then he ran for Congress, and then he ran for mayor. And also, I think I'm the only person in the last 60 years to say I'm a Republican and I'm here, and not to be ashamed of that.
You obviously, your resume is robust in terms of politics, but it's always been on the other side, helping a campaign.
Yep.
Lamar Alexander, obviously.
Yeah.
What was different about being the proverbial woman, if you will?
The woman in the arena.
The man, the face of the campaign.
Yeah, well, it was different, very humbling. I think even this weekend, right? And I was sort of joking in some ways, losing an election is a little bit like going to your own funeral, right? There are so many people there to celebrate you, and it keeps going, right? The trust and the hope that I think people put in me and in our candidacy and in our vision for Nashville, that I do, this is my hometown, right? And it was really a beautiful journey. So I, a lot of people say, are you going to run for something else? It's a little bit like moms out there. If you've just had a baby, don't ask someone, are you going to have another baby? Don't do that right now. So maybe later. we got to recover a little bit. We got to sleep through the night.
Right.
But no, it was it was a real honor, and also to be the person that people said, hey, we want to support you. We want to see you succeed and our city succeed. So it really was a great honor.
Was there anything, and as you mentioned, you've grown up here. It's not like you don't know Nashville. But was there anything you learned in the process of visiting the different communities in the city? What takeaways for you about the people of this community? Because I and let me say as kind of a side note, I understand why it's easy for many of our conservative friends to just trash Nashville, but I also think that's short-sighted. And that's a difficult argument for me to make on this radio station, because when I make it, invariably the super texters and other commentators come out and say, "Oh, Nashville's trash," blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that, nor do I think it's in our best future interest to think that way.
Yeah. So one of my former colleagues that I worked with for many years, he was kind of my right-hand guy, Jason Howes. If you're listening, his dad was Ron Howes, the longtime meteorologist at one of our stations here, probably 30 years. He texted me the other day and he said, sometimes I have days where I think I just want to leave. And then you just went right there in the middle of it and was like, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to turn this ship around. Yeah. And so I do think that sort of, I think frequently the desire is to run out, to move to Wilson County, to move to Sumner County, to pick up and move to Williamson County, and not to say, hang on, like there is an opportunity, I think, to turn this around. But things that I learned, gosh, there are what I would call the sort of performative and trough-feeding parts of city government that many of us see every day, and we see it covered extensively on Twitter and in, the press that covers Nashville and what I call sort of the downtown crowd. But the real beauty of Nashville are in the people that don't live in that space, right? That go to church, that cross the crosswalks in the right spot, that pay their taxes, that wake up and care about their neighbors. And that really was beautiful to me. That part of Nashville is here. It's alive. It's not loud. I think frequently we know this, the truth sort of lives in the quiet, and the loud is lies, and things are very loud. And so
I can't stand people that are loud, Alice. Loud mouths.
But yeah, so that was really beautiful. Look, Amandir up in Hermitage invited me up and made this beautiful flower garland. I went down to the Coptic Christian Church down on Nolensville Road, went all over the top at Valor Ridge in Antioch, and Raul Lopez and the Men of Valor there that are helping men rebuild their lives after prison. I mean, these are beautiful things happening all over Davidson County.
Well, and even if you make a decision for you and your family, and this is what I think that I covered on Super Talk, and I'm not knocking Dan or Brian or Chris, but I think I covered the mayor's race more than anyone. Mm-hmm. And my point was not just to those who lived in Davidson County, but if you live in Wilson or Sumner or Rutherford or Williamson or anywhere within the sound of my voice, Nashville matters to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does.
And I understand that you don't have a voting interest, but you ought to have a rooting interest. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm trying to reinvigorate that rooting interest. It's difficult because, well, frankly, it's difficult because you see the totals, right? And
right.
You were, for me, no necessarily a knock on Freddie, but you were obviously the better choice. But Nashville lives and breathes in a place that thinks differently than I do, than you do. And that's hard to connect the outlying communities with the fact that Nashville thinks a little bit differently, but it's also very important to the future of this region.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, and I know you wanted to talk about mayors broadly, so I brought you a copy of this Wall Street Journal op-ed from this weekend, if you wanted to talk about that.
America's city need more Republicans, and I'm becoming. Well, yeah, this is we made mention of this, right?
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about the fact that the mayor of Dallas has chosen to. Now, do they declare how they? I mean, because technically
they're nonpartisan, just like we are.
But but you were very open.
Yeah.
I don't know that your opponent was necessarily that open, but you were very open about what your political affiliation, your basic philosophy of government.
It's look, this city is nonpartisan as long as you're a Democrat, and I just believe that leaves. Is it a third or is it a quarter? Is it 40%? It just leaves a lot of talent on the sidelines, and it leaves maybe a different way of approaching problems. And that is, I think, kind of what Mayor Johnson in Dallas is saying, right? Is that if we live always in these echo chambers of progressive ideas, and a lot of these things are not working, and we've seen them not work over and over again in large cities, that if we simply live in that echo chamber where we cheer each other on for having the same ideas, instead of sometimes saying, hey, maybe we should figure out how to live within our means, right? I was frequently asked, Alice, what would you not have spent money on? It was an interesting question. Great example for people listening is take the new Hillwood High School, the Lawson High School, right? We spent arguably, it's close to $200 million when you look at land acquisitions, the right-of-way acquisition, and then the building itself. And yet we have an empty campus that's probably worth $70 million that we didn't do anything with. So I think most people, if they're going to buy or build a new house, they first sell or work on or work on how to use the existing asset that they have, right? So we spent a lot more money, but we never stopped and said, how do I sort of backstop where it's not all being passed on to the taxpayers? Those are just sort of like a simple example of how I think a different way of thinking.
Is Hillwood the one It's like near Green. Is it near Green Hills?
Westmead.
Yeah, Westmead. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, it looks like a college campus.
Well, you're thinking of Hillsborough High School.
I am thinking of Hillsborough.
Yeah. So
High School.
Hillsborough High School was rebuilt on this same footprint,
Right.
And then we've just opened a beautiful new high school. It's great that we've got a new high school. I'm not knocking that, but we didn't, in the process of opening and financing the opening of a new high school, we just said let's pass that on to taxpayers.
Right.
We didn't say how do I take the asset that I already have and think about selling it. It's worth a lot, land and, or think about repurposing it instead of having to buy other land elsewhere in the county.
Let's take a short time out and let's talk about this piece and talk about how you think it relates around the country and why this is that Eric Johnson made the decision to declare himself in the Wall Street Journal. Also, do I remember this right? Do you have teaching in your background?
I do. Yep.
See, you know why I knew that, Belle? Because she brought me a copy.
Oh, I did. I brought a copy. I did, yes. And I did frequently on the campaign carry around the budget summary of the state and the city, just in case anybody needed, if they were like, we're not ready to believe you. I was just ready to hand it over.
I love it. I love it. Alice says, Matthew, here's your copy in case
Yes.
you forgot your copy at
You
home.
never know. You might need a copy.
21 after the hour. We'll be back in a moment on the Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah.
Hey, Brentwood Hearing Center wants to talk with you, and they want to hear from you. And I understand maybe your hearing's been going for some time, and I get it because I've told the story before. I wish my grandfather was around because I would drive him to Brentwood Hearing Center and beg of them to help him out because he lost his hearing, but he was steadfast in his belief that he had not. You know what I'm saying? He just got louder, and if he got louder, everything else should get louder too. Well, a lot of people wait. A lot of people believe that they can kind of, my favorite phrase, whistle past that graveyard. But you can't. And Brentwood Hearing Center understands that your hearing oftentimes is not going to get better unless it's a specific thing. And if it is, they can diagnose that specific thing and they can make it better. They can also make it better with an incredible hearing device with Brentwood Hearing Center. Did you know that they have the Phonak Paradise Life now, which it's a waterproof hearing device, which is brand new technology that you can find out about. Even if you currently have a device, if you're frustrated because you can't jump in the pool with it or you can't get wet with it or you can't sweat a lot during the summertime months, they are pleased to demonstrate the new product and discuss the possibilities for you at Brentwood Hearing Center. Brentwood Hearing Center believes in better hearing for a better life, and I believe in Brentwood Hearing Center. 615-377-0420, 377-0420. Give them a call today and schedule your appointment at Brentwood Hearing Center. Headless Bell's in there waving his arms, saying, Matt, you're back. And I'm thinking to myself, I know.
No, I'm like, no, listen to the song.
No, I'm not interrupting the Starlight vocal band.
Starland vocal band.
I thought it was Starlight.
No.
Are you sure?
Positive.
I mean, you're looking at it there, but are you sure?
I don't need to look at it to be sure.
I loved this song before Anchorman.
You like that song, Alice?
Afternoon Delight?
I'm
hedging some bets there.
Yeah, didn't get to hear all of it. Didn't have the headphones on yet. Still on the campaign trail.
Sounds like a politician. It is, most don't know this, but September 25th, I didn't know it until I looked it up. September 25th is National One Hit Wonder Day.
Oh, so we're doing some one hit wonders?
And so we're doing some one hit wonders.
Okay.
And I liked Afternoon Delight long before it was featured in the film Anchorman. And I swear to you, I thought it was Starlight Vocal Band, but I'm going to defer to Belle K on that. Thank you very much, Belle. We were talking about cities, Dallas, as it relates to Nashville. And I want to ask you a broader question. Do major cities have a Democrat problem? It seems obvious on its face, but I'd like to hear what pops in your mind when I ask you the question.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't know if it's a Democrat problem or a bravery problem, right? To be brave enough to do things a little bit differently. So we have two mayors right now that I think people should look at and think about. One is Eric Johnson. If you're Wall Street Journal readers, my Aunt Mary, she is basically my clipping service. And this weekend she sent me this. Thanks, Aunt Mary. She is very good at this. And he says the future of Americans' great urban centers depend on the willingness of nations' mayors to champion law and order and practice fiscal conservatism, right? This, and we see this, right? If you want to create an environment for an economy to thrive, you have to look at what impacts everyone, and tax policy impacts everyone. Some of these nice to have or sort of flavor of the week programs are picking winners and losers. It's saying we're going to subsidize this one idea that may or may not work, but we're going to ask everyone who is here to pay for that, right? To pay for taking that bet. And, and then separately, I think we have to look over at the mayor of New York City. Last week, the New York City public schools just went back in session, and they've got 19,000 migrant students that are newly enrolled there, and that you've got the mayor of New York City saying this is potentially going to break our city. This policy that they put in place around housing all migrants years ago is, I think, now costing a couple of $1 billion a year for New York City. And so
you also have the governor of that state declared 2 years ago, she declared we're open for business. She read the Statue of Liberty, the famous poem. Now she's saying New York City's full.
Yeah.
She's declaring.
And actually, I think if I'm remembering correctly, Eric Adams, the mayor there, has switched parties. He has been both a Republican in the past and is Democratic now. So I don't know if it's necessarily a party issue, but it is getting away from the echo chamber that is saying that the most fundamental aspects, if we think about it, of a city is what impacts 80 or 90% of the people that live there, right? Roads, schools, tax policy. But what we watch happen is cities being used as this backdrop for sort of this idea of elected leaders who want to pretend that they're running some type of an organization that they get to decide what all of the rules are. But fundamentally, the economic rules apply to every city, right? Is the city safe? Is its tax policy one that businesses want to locate there? And not are these sort of nice to have things the main purpose of a city?
One of the quotes that I wanted you to just highlight and talk about in the article that you sent was when my political hero, and this is Eric Johnson talking. Am I saying that? Yeah, Eric Johnson of Dallas. American cities need Republicans. When my political hero, Theodore Roosevelt, was born, only 20% of Americans lived in urban areas. By the time he was elected president, that share doubled to 40%. Today, it stands at 80%. As American cities go, so goes America. And it harkens back to the point that I wanted to make during the campaign, that while you might live in what would be defined as the suburbs of Nashville and feel that you don't have a say, Nashville matters. And I think Eric Johnson is recognizing that Dallas has not reached the tipping point that some American cities seem to have reached. I don't believe Nashville has reached that tipping point either, but that is not to say that we can't or won't unless we make some systemic changes. I'm talking Seattle, Detroit, Baltimore, Portland, Oregon, those types. San Francisco, obviously, the California cities.
Yeah. No. It's this question. Is being part of a club more important than managing a city?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so I do have hope, and I am hopeful. Today our new mayor was sworn in this morning, and I am hopeful that me being in the race changed the conversation materially. Right? Had I not been in the race, I believe that the runoff, the entire conversation would have been how everything is the state's fault. It is not our responsibility that we only spend a third of our school's budget on teachers. That's somehow the state's fault, right? It's somehow the state's fault that we have more debt in Davidson County than the whole state of Tennessee combined. And so I think me being in the race forced people to say, hang on, you can love Nashville and love Tennessee. You can learn how to take responsibility for what we have done to get ourselves where we are and not constantly take this antagonistic perspective that says it's not my fault.
Did you see what he said today?
Oh, no.
About his number one priority?
No.
All right, I'll share it with everybody in a moment. Alice Rowley's with us for one more segment, whether she likes it or not. Okay. I've locked the door. 1:32 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. I'm so excited to tell you about PhD Weight Loss, as they have now helped me lose 35 pounds and counting. I was up to 253. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. I didn't like, when you're walking down the street and you see that glance of the, it's like the reflection that's coming at you from the side of the glass. And I thought, oh, who's that fat guy over there? Oh, it's me. I didn't like all of that. And so I decided to do something about it. But I wanted a program that works, that was steady, that was simple. And I got it with PhD Weight Loss. Ashley Lucas and her plan works. I'm a testimony to it. Guys, you'll lose an average of 3 to 5 pounds per week. Ladies, 2 to 3 pounds per week. And don't forget about the PhD guarantee. You'll get within 5 pounds of your target weight by the end of your program, or they will continue to coach you for free until you do. You can't ask for more than that. The program simply works, and you don't go hungry every day. Don't worry about that. You'll feel full and you'll lose the weight. PhD Weight Loss is the plan for you. Go to myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com to find out more. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to PhD Weight Loss. That's a good one. It's top notch. One-hit wonders on the Matt Murphy Show today on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Alice Rowley is no one-hit wonder. She'll be back stronger than ever. There's no theme here.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Make no mistake. 137. By the way, I owe Dan Mandis of Nashville's Morning News a sincere and formal apology. I accused his...
You owe Tommy Two-Tone a severe apology.
Mandis jumps in there on the text line and says that we're being ridiculous talking about one-hit wonders without talking Tommy Two-Tone. 83, what is it?
8675309.
Okay.
8675309. Jenny. And I asked Dan, I was like, isn't that guy in prison for like child molestation? And apparently that's Gary Glitter. So
correct.
I apologize. I got my one-hit wonders mixed up. Anyway, I'm walking a line here because I think your recent experience, your overall experience in politics, and your recognition of where Nashville is, where places like Dallas are, and where they perhaps need to be and refocus is so important to our community. But I also am cognizant, and I don't want to put you in a position of sounding like this is sour grapes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I'm also compelled to ask you, do you have hope for Freddie? Freddie O'Connell.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. No, I do. Look, what was fascinating to me is after my concession speech, so many people wrote me and they said that was a beautiful speech. Like that was beautiful, and it was reflecting on what we've been talking about, like how beautiful Nashville is, what hope we saw, what I think are important things. But look, we tell our children, get out there and suit up and play your very best, and we lose, right? I lost. And I lost, and people can say you lost in a landslide, you lost convincingly, you lost, all the words everybody wants to lose, but I lost. And to be able to have grace in losing too, to model that it is important for our ideas to get out there, right? And I, as hard as it is to lose, it's also, I think it would have been worse for the city for us to not confront the fact that we have more debt in Davidson County than the whole state put together, right? For us to not look at that and say, hang on, we did that to ourselves, right? We need to deal with that. We can't keep looking the other way.
Why is that? Is it just overspending?
Right. Yeah.
On pretty projects, on shiny ribbons and shiny.
Well, and I think that most people in Nashville say, "Hang on, Alice, we have a great. We just had a bond rating upgrade, and it's terrific, and everything's fine. Nothing to see here." But it is our second largest spending line item. $413 million is going to service our debt. The whole state spends $342 million on a debt. So part of it is that Tennessee is an extraordinarily low debt state because we've taken a pay-as-you-go approach for road funding. So we don't have really any road debt. That is extraordinary in sort of the market of all 50 states. So that's a big part of it. But the other part is the spending, the sort of the tax and spend philosophy that really came into place in 2008 after the financial crash. You see, in the last 8 years, we've doubled that. So 8 years ago, $200 million line item was our debt. Now it's $400 million. And one could argue these have been some pretty good years in Nashville. How come we've pushed all of that onto our kids and our grandkids?
So is Eric Johnson, forgive me for not knowing, a good interviewer would have researched this before
That's
getting
okay.
here.
I brought my homework, so you're
Eric
good.
Johnson, I don't know if he has an opportunity to run for re-election.
He doesn't. No, he was just reelected and then changed his party affiliation.
That makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because he's trying to make a statement more than anything about what he believes is the necessary focus and future of how to lead a large city like Dallas and what your focus should be. But I'm fearful that until one of our major cities sees the election of a Republican, that we'll just continue to go down this road. That the Democrats have an anticipation. The party has an anticipation. I'm not talking about Freddie O'Connell. I'm not talking about any individuals. But the party has an expectation that they've got the major cities in the United States locked up.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got two cities not too far behind us, Oklahoma City and Fort Worth, that both have Republican mayors. They're in the same 20 to 30th size city in the country. So we're not alone. In the top 10 largest cities, he is now alone as the only Republican mayor. That's true.
Does the situation in some of these cities have to get worse?
Probably. Like, look at Giuliani being elected in New York when he was. And granted, he had been a Democrat before, changed his party affiliation. People would say that that was political, that he changed his party affiliation because he couldn't ever survive. He was too conservative as a Democrat to survive their primary. But he was elected as a Republican, right, in a time when their crime was pretty out of control. And so brought in, ushered in a new era that then I think a lot of people said the Giuliani-Bloomberg era in New York was a great time for New York City. And now we see where
And it was
New
a
York
law and
is
order
now.
approach more
That's
than
right.
anything, right?
That's right, which is exactly what Eric Johnson is sort of saying is he's lowered taxes. He's looked at what is my tax policy relative to my region? And we don't do that here. We kind of go, oh, our taxes are better than Austin. Instead of, hang on, if I'm looking at locating here or Williamson County, it's why our neighbors are growing and we are not. We've only added 20,000 residents in the last 8 years, right? And we're actually projected to shrink slightly as a city, Davidson County alone. So tax policy drives decisions of where businesses are going to be in this region. We should not compare ourselves in that way to Atlanta and Austin. The realtors love to do it. But in terms of where you're going to locate your business here, like he has in Dallas, he said, how do I make sure that I'm the most competitive in North Texas, not, relative to a city 800 miles away?
Well, and part of it is something that I experienced this weekend. My wife and I went to the farmers market on Charlotte Pike. I forget
Richland Farmers Market.
And then afterwards, we went to an area that I've never been to before called Fatherland.
Mm-hmm.
You know Fatherland? Does anybody know
East
Fatherland?
Nashville?
Yeah, in
Yep.
East Nashville, right? And there were lovely shops. She went to she submarined me and got me into a couple of places that have no business being in. They smell too nice. You know what I'm talking about. I'm like, and I said, how did this happen? This was not on the agenda. I asked her, I don't mean to get too deep into this, but I asked her the agenda.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're going to the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And then where are we going after that? And we went over to the antique place across the street, which is awesome, the weird things and stuff or whatever it is. And then that's cool. And then suddenly we end up in a candle shop. And I'm like, whoa. This candle shop was not on the agenda.
Yeah,
so
$50 candles not on the agenda.
So I went to
Get me out of here.
I went to the dog store and I bought $50 dog treats instead of $50 candles.
Yeah.
But we get back in the car. and we don't have any kids, and we're looking for a place to buy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a deep, not money, but you know what I'm saying. So we're prime candidates to be convinced. And I drive through that greater neighborhood and impressed. And then you get through parts of the city and Erica says, no, thank you. She's fearful. She does not have the confidence in safety, in public safety, that I think you need to have in order to attract, not us necessarily because we're middle-aged, but younger people, especially people with kids. Then you add the education component. I mean, all of that matters, but it starts, as Eric Johnson, and I think you understand, with law and order and with police presence.
Yep. Yeah, law and order and frankly, tax policy and then schools policy.
Mm-hmm.
Can I send my children to a school that my tax dollars pay for? That should not be a wild statement to think about asking from your local government. And I would say in this region, I actually met the dean of the Peabody School at Vanderbilt this weekend, and we were talking, and she lives right over the county line, and we were talking about why did she live there? She said, well, the schools are better. What a statement.
One of the most repeated and reported on stories of the great Abraham Lincoln was his team of rivals concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I would long for a moment where a Freddie O'Connell would call an Alice Rowley up and say, hey, do you have time to meet with a group once every month or so and me throw ideas at you and get your thoughts and concepts? I mean, I think it would be so beneficial and demonstrative of a belief that I need to govern for the – I'm not saying that he's not doing this. I'm not saying he is doing this. I'm not wagging a finger. I just think we need more of that type of thing. We've siloed ourselves, and the big cities are the great example of it. They are so siloed. Democrats do not fear Republicans whatsoever. They only fear being out-democrated. Right. And so it creates
an echo chamber.
And it's an echo chamber that creates alerts to the left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
To the point that I brought it up at the beginning of the conversation. I get excited when I talk about it, that the city of Chicago had Lori Lightfoot, who was soft on crime. She did not get in a runoff because she was too soft on crime, because people were mad about crime. And so they elected a guy that's further left than her, which makes no sense.
Yep. Yeah. No, we do need compelling center right voices in our city's conversation. And I know that the new mayor is very busy. I actually reached out to him the other day to wish him a happy new year. It is the Jewish New Year now. And I know that some of his family's heritage is Jewish. And I just said I'll be happy to be there on Saturday as just a regular guest or in any capacity you'd like me to be there.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Where do you see Nashville in 5 years?
Oh, goodness.
This is the big test, pal. This is the test to see if Alice is still on the campaign trail.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you in a couple of things that I would like to spend some time, that I'm starting to spend some time looking at, that I'd like to help move the needle in the next 5 years. One is obviously around Tennessee State University. We see it at the state and at the federal level. We have underfunded our state's historically Black college and land grant university. We need to remedy that. And it's going to actually take, I think, looking at the overall management going forward of the university and also the funding. And I think those two things together need to be strong in order for it to be a thriving institution. And then the second thing is something that I've talked to quite a bit about is around mental health, right? The epidemic that is here and that is coming around youth mental health, the challenges that we hear in superintendents around the state that are seeing it in our high schools. We see this, and we do not have enough beds. I hear from families saying, I've had to send my child to Utah, to North Carolina, somewhere else. And so those are two things that are meaningful. They are regional in nature. They matter to Nashville, but they matter to all of us as people living here. And so I'd like to work on those two things in the next 5 years.
What are you doing for the next 3 months? I mean, are you just are you decompressing?
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot of meetings.
Getting away from loudmouth political talk show hosts like Matt Murphy?
I'm joining next month the Dominican Sisters of St. Cecilia on their pilgrimage to Rome. I'm going to apparently go see the Pope with them. So, I'm doing that.
You're going to see the Pope?
Yeah, we are.
And you know what the Pope's going to say, Belle? Alice, I'm really sorry you lost that election. I would have voted for you if I lived in Nashville.
Well, you haven't lived if you haven't hung out with the Dominican Sisters of St. Cecilia. There are about 300. They live in North Nashville. And they're at the Mother House there, and there's a group of them going on a pilgrimage, and I'm going to go with them.
Well, good for you. Well, thank you for stopping in today, and thank you for lending your voice to the process. It was very, very important, and I think it moved us forward as a community. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Matt. And I will tell you, shout out to my friends down in Linville at the Soda Pop Junction.
Yeah.
If you guys are listening, make me a burger. I'll be there on Friday.
Well, there you go. And make me one too, guys. I'll be there in spirit, if not there in person. Thank you, Alice.
Yeah.
There's Alice Rowley. We'll be back in a moment. 150 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. United Structural Systems USS wants to see you. You know, you talk about not wanting to deal with problems. If you've got foundation issues, you don't want to deal with it. If you have waterproofing issues, you want to pretend that it doesn't exist. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to spend money encapsulating your home? You want to spend money repairing the foundation of your home? Of course you don't. But just because you don't want to spend a little money on these things doesn't mean that you should not make the call to figure out what's going on. And frankly, just knowing what's going on with your foundation, with your waterproofing is half the battle, because then you can give yourself peace of mind that you understand the process, understand the issue. And USS, when you call them, you've got the best when it comes to solving that issue at the lowest price point possible. Since 1994, they've had over 25,000 satisfied residential customers like you make the call. They've solved the issues that ail their homes. Sadly, we live in a topography in an area where there are a lot of hills and valleys. With that comes a lot of water, comes a lot of runoff, and that comes a lot of waterproofing and foundational issues. So make the call that so many others have made to USS. It's USSTN.com, USSTN.com, or 615-488-7855. 488-7855 for USS. You interrupted my lovely goodbye to Alice. She was about to give me a big old hug. Are you ready? Check 1 2. Check 1 2. 1 2 3 4. Am I doing something wrong? I mean, I nailed it too. Check 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 4. And I'm Matt Murphy. You ready? Okay. And I'm Matt Murphy. I'll be there from noon until 3. 615-851-1950 for more information. Or you can go to the website, 997wtn.com, or online at paulwinkler.com. Here's the other one. Yeah? Hey, it's Matt Murphy. Join me this Friday from noon until 3 as we broadcast live from California Closet's Berry Hill location. They're celebrating 25 years of helping Tennesseans get the most out of their closets, garages, and pantries. Come take a tour, drink some Amber Falls wine, and enjoy me. Let me do it again. Hey, it's Matt Murphy. Join me this Friday from noon until 3 as we broadcast live from California Closets, the Berry Hill location. We're celebrating 25 years of helping Tennesseans get the most out of their closets, their garages, and pantries. Come take a tour. Drink some Amber Falls wine. Enjoy music and food. Oh, Dan Mandis will drop by as well. Details at 997wtn.com. Check 1 2 3 4. John says he heard all of that I just recorded. The way my world's going.
Might have been on the web. Somebody's been messing with buttons in here again.
John, are you listening online or on the radio? That's what I want to know. I don't think about it. Did I say anything bad? Hey, Mac, did I say anything bad? I'm just skipping over.
It definitely wasn't on the radio.
Okay.
But it would be nice if people would. It would
online.
be nice if people would stop messing with buttons.
I know. Well, online, you heard me talking about a couple of things that we're going to be doing. Thursday, I will be at Paul Winkler's. Online, you can find us at paulwinkler.com. Find out more information at 997wtn.com. I was recording promos during the break, and sometimes we have to do that because I got to get out of the way, man. The drive's coming up at 3:00, so I have to skedaddle.
Brian doesn't have time for your shenanigans.
I know. Brian's got no time for it. Hand won't let me do it beforehand. And finding a production room in this facility, so we do it here in studio during the show. And believe it or not, I just don't laze about during the commercials. I have work that Belkay makes me do. He lashes the whip. And my one request is that what I do doesn't go out over the radio. And it did not.
It's true.
It did not. I was wondering how you could hear me back there. How could you hear me?
I couldn't. I just couldn't see what Bell was doing, and I saw that it wasn't working at first. And so then
Did everybody on the online hear me give Bell the business? Because he gives me guff. I hope I didn't curse. He gives me hell. Like, come on, man, we got to do these promos. And I'm like, I was saying goodbye to Alice. She's my new BFF.
You got to remember, it doesn't matter. I mean, technically, you can curse online all you want to.
Well, I know that, but I just don't. I don't want to be that guy.
They should hear what you say to me when we're not on the air.
I go, man. If you've never heard Bill O'Reilly, that's based. Bill O'Reilly's my spirit animal when it comes to how I talk to Belkay. And doing these promos, just F it. We'll do it live.
I think the words "kill yourself" have come out of your mouth at one point.
The best, as I've long said, and if you've never heard it, it is the most famous. And really the most special because it pre-existed digital. Like a guy in the boardroom had to be rolling tape on Casey Kasem when Casey Kasem lost his ever-loving mind on a guy trying to record America's Top 40. A blankety-blank death dedication. Is that
somebody's damn dog?
Is that Dan on the phone? Would you get Dan on the phone? I got to do something. Coming out of these up-tempo records, man. Go listen if you can. And anyway, no, Miss Ann, I don't do ED promos. I do ED commercials. That would be the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and that's coming up at about 2:20 this afternoon. Coming up right now, Mac Maury in the newsroom with a few headlines. Gary Palmer coming up to talk to us about Washington, D.C. That's on the way.
.201, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 85 degrees, a sunny day in Nashville. Expected some showers, possible storms this week, Tuesday night through Thursday night. Got the chance for showers every day. Complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. Right now in Tennessee, John Overton High School is placed in lockdown this afternoon. The threat has now been deemed uncredible by law enforcement. Officials say this falls in line with other fake threats the city has been receiving these past few weeks. And classes are set to resume once a precautionary search has concluded. And right now, staying in Nashville, Freddie O'Connell has officially been sworn in as mayor of Metro Nashville. Here's Channel 4's Ryan Breslin reporting.
During a private ceremony this morning, O'Connell's family stood by his side as Judge David Briley swore him in as mayor. O'Connell's youngest daughter held their family Bible. The new mayor says he wants everyone to see the Metro government working on their behalf and looks forward to better sidewalks, more transit, and affordable housing. Mayor O'Connell says one of the biggest challenges overall is working on state and local relationships.
The inauguration is this Saturday at 11:30 a.m. at City Hall Park. And there is now less than 1 week until a possible government shutdown. Karen Travers with the latest.
The White House continues to say that this is the Republicans' problem to fix, that the House Republicans need to get themselves in order, and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has to come up with the solution for this. And what we're hearing now from Speaker McCarthy is that he's going to move forward, or trying to move forward this week, on 4 different appropriations bills that would fund the Department of Homeland Security, the Defense Department, the State Department, and Agriculture. See if they can get those 4 big agencies covered.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hello, my name is Matt Murphy. It's 6 minutes after 2 o'clock, and thus far, the most talked about segment of this radio show has been the portion that was not for air. And I don't know if that says more about me on the air or off. One way or the other, I'm glad you're listening and watching on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, where you could see my. I'm pretty proud. I got through one of them in one take. Belkay, correct me if I'm wrong. I got through one in one take, and it took me 2 takes on the other. Is that not right? And the retake was because of a technical glitch on that side of things. I feel pretty good about that. Normally it takes me like 28.
No,
I did have to take one more of the other promo. That's true.
It was 2 for 2.
I was 2 for 2, but one was my fault and one was a technical thing.
Yeah.
Okay. How you doing over there?
I'm good.
We all good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying to stuff stacking up.
Mm-hmm. Got Gary Palmer coming up in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got to call him.
I mean, are we going to do that?
No, who knows? It's something to consider.
Congressman Gary Palmer, who is the Republican Party policy chair for the Republicans in the House of Representatives, will be joining us in a moment. He's also a 6th congressional district representative from down in Alabama, and I consider him a good friend. A lot of response to what's been going on in the show today. We had a great conversation with Alice Rowley in the aftermath of her run for mayor of Nashville, and a lot of you wondering how in the world this person did not win. Well, there are a lot of liberal Democrats in Nashville, and liberal Democrats, well, you don't become liberal Democrats because of your good sense. You become a liberal Democrat out of an ability to follow the herd, and they certainly do have that ability. I still have hope I'm telling you, folks, I have hope for Nashville. I remain pessimistic in so many different ways, but I'm not going to be pessimistic about my newly adopted hometown. I understand that Nashville is going to be the most liberal part of Middle Tennessee, but I do not believe Nashville has to go the way of San Francisco. I do not believe Nashville has to go the way of Portland or Seattle or Detroit or Milwaukee or Baltimore or Philadelphia or St. Louis. Name a major metropolitan city run by leftists. I don't think it has to go that way. And I think if we keep our eye on the prize, it will not. And I do believe, and part of the reason that Alice was on with us, I do believe people like Eric Johnson flipping to the Republican Party. And yes, he had to win re-election to do it. And yes, he's going to govern as a Republican and then he'll be out of office. But I believe if you see Dallas, Texas improve its state over the next 3 years, that gives a lot of hope for Republicans in major metropolitan areas. In other words, I'm going to maintain a sense of hope for Freddie. I know that most of you have dismissed him, and I might be right there with you at some point. But I'm going to try my best to present a conservative or libertarian voice to the leaders of this city in hopes that it affects them in a positive way. Okay? Okay. All right. Speaking of my good friend, he's on line one. Gary Palmer joins me on the show. I mentioned he is the he's the policy chair of the House Republican Caucus in the House of Representatives, and he is amongst the leadership in the Republican Party there. And obviously, the Republican Party has the majority in the House, and we're set to face the specter of another shutdown. To speak about this, Gary joins us on the show. Gary, thank you for being on with us. How are you?
I'm glad to be on with you, Matt. And I'm like you. I hope Nashville doesn't go the way of San Francisco. That'd be a national tragedy.
Well, it is, and sadly, we see so many of these communities, these cities, that are just in the death throes because of liberal policies and liberal politics. And I mean, man, you face it every day in Washington D.C., and you have to face a political party that seems to be willing to put America over the fire and watch it burn, so long as they come out on the winning side of things, which is it's dangerous to play chicken with somebody that's willing to wreck their car. You know what I mean?
I think we're dealing with people who want to wreck the car. You know, this has been going on for over 100 years, this idea that we need to ditch the Constitution, the progressive movement, whatever you want to call it, but it's really socialism. It may be a diluted form of communism, and I know that what I'm saying is a little provocative, but I really don't know how to explain what the left is doing when you have the energy policies that they've got, when they want to make us 100% reliant on China for our energy, output, what they did on COVID and the control they try to exert over people. So I really, when you stop and ask yourself, why would somebody do that? I really don't have a good answer.
Well, it's troubling that we're fighting amongst ourselves when we have these people that seem to want to destroy the Constitution of the United States and the United States of America as we know it as a consequence. They say the quiet part out loud now, Gary. I mean, Obama said that he wanted to transform America. Joe Biden's making no bones about it either. But talk to me a little about what's going on amongst the Republicans in the House of Representatives. I want to break this down and make sure that people understand the debate that's happening and the consequences of a variety of different options that are before us as we see the fiscal year coming to a close. Can you give us like a 50,000-foot overview to start?
Yeah, the appropriations process, first of all, a lot of people get confused and think that's the budget. The budget's where this starts. And I served on the Budget Committee for 4 years. That's where you lay out what you then send to the committees of jurisdiction, like the Committee on Armed Services or the Agriculture Committee. It's the amounts that they are to take up when they do their authorizations, and all appropriations should be authorized. In other words, they go through the vetting process through committee. It's what we've always called regular order. And then once the committees finish that work, they send the authorization bills to the Appropriations Committee. And, you and I have talked about this before. One of the most prominent authorization bills is the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. That's one that most people are familiar with. Well, when that goes to the Appropriations Committee, they send it down to their subcommittees that, like the Subcommittee on Armed Services. They go through the debate process, allow both sides to offer amendments. Once it comes out of the subcommittee, it goes to full committee. The full committee gets an opportunity to offer amendments. And then when the full committee votes the bill out of committee, it goes to the Rules Committee, where everybody has a chance to offer amendments. And once that process is done, the bill goes to the floor, and that can take months to get done. So if you get off schedule, you're really messed up. So what we're going to face when we go back, I think we've got 4 bills. There's an agreement to bring 4 bills to the floor, but there's over 400 amendments.
And you have to go through those one by one under regular order.
Right. Now, some of them, the ones that are not controversial, can be all pulled into one group of amendments and voted on as a block, but the others have to be voted individually.
Isn't it something, and I've known you a long time, Gary, since before you were in Washington, D.C. as a House of Representatives member and long before you were head of the policy caucus or the policy committee. You've been arguing for regular order for a long time, right?
Yeah, and we finally got regular order.
And
Before years under Pelosi, Matt, they were writing these bills in her office and bringing them to the floor.
So if this is the way the sausage is made appropriately, and this is what we want, then what is the debate amongst Republicans? Is it because we've got a time crunch in front of us? And if so, the big question is, how did that happen? What happened between, I don't know, June and now that created this compression of time? Why does that seem to happen almost annually?
Well, I think, and I'm thinking about bringing this up in our leadership meeting, is we might need to change how we do this legislation. And by that, I mean the first bill, our H.R. 1 bill, was the Lowering Energy Cost Act. And it took weeks to get that bill out. And then the second one was the Secure the Border Act, which is in this 30-day funding bill for the government, includes that bill. So what's going on, I think, is that the committees have their top priority bills, and so they get to work on those. and sometimes the authorization process kind of gets pushed back. Now, in the state of Alabama, I don't know about the state legislature of Tennessee, but in Alabama, we have a law, as you know, that requires the budgets to be passed first, the appropriations and budgets bills to be passed first. Which they
never do, by the way. But
it's true, because they pass a budget isolation resolution and go on about and do other stuff. But still, I'm thinking we ought to make that a priority, is get that done first. And, you could argue that maybe we shouldn't have taken the whole month of August off and stayed in Washington to get these done. You could make that argument. But here's the thing that's different now. When I first went to Congress, John Boehner was Speaker, and then, of course, Paul Ryan, and then we went into exile for 4 years under Pelosi. But if this were Boehner, we wouldn't even be discussing this. He would have cut a deal with Pelosi, gotten 20 or 30 Democrats, given them whatever they wanted, and we would be talking about an omnibus, which I have never voted for and will not vote for. But McCarthy has committed we will not do an omnibus. And so,
but isn't Gates? I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought there, but aren't people like Representative Matt Gates and maybe Congressman Andy Ogles? I don't put words in his mouth. I heard him this morning on Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis, but they're arguing that a continuing resolution would be, in effect, an omnibus.
No.
Tell me how they're different.
Well, in an omnibus, that's an agreement between the Republicans and the Democrats, and that's where you get a lot of your court money dumped in, particularly on the Senate side. And the omnibus funds the government through the end of the fiscal year. That would go through September 30th of next year. What a continuing resolution does is it's only 30 days, and the particular one that we have funds the government for the next 30 days at the same level, but it also includes the Secure the Border Act. The only difference between the bill we passed earlier this year and what's in the CRs is it doesn't have the E-Verify in it, which was pretty much a consensus of everybody to leave that out. But this would be a bill that the Senate would have to take up and pass in order to keep the government funded, but it would also pass the Secure the Border Act.
Why wouldn't the Senate? Why wouldn't the Senate, even if you got it past the House, why wouldn't the Senate just not do it?
Well, if they didn't, then they'd be the ones that shut the government down, while also leaving the border open. And that's what that's what we ought to be talking about is the Senate would be willing to shut the government down but keep the border open. And we're trying to shut the border down, keep the government open.
Don't you feel like the Republicans are going to be blamed one way or the other? And the Democrats know that?
We always are. But they blame Donald Trump for everything, and he's up 9 points on Biden now. So,
well, I get that.
I can't worry about what the Democrats are going to do with their media allies in the mainstream media. We got to do what's best for the country, and we have to secure the border. And I think having it in the CR really puts it out there in full view of everyone. So I think we made a mistake in passing it as early as we did, because by now everybody's forgotten about it. This is an issue that even Democrats realize has become critical. So I think we put it out there, and hopefully we can get my colleagues in the House, to allow it to come to the floor and get it passed.
What can you accomplish with a continuing resolution that you couldn't accomplish simply by allowing the government to shut down on the 30th if you can't get your work done by then, and continuing to work to pass the 12 appropriation bills one by one to include border security and other? Could you not do it that way?
Well, if the government shut down, you're not paying your Border Patrol agents, and they could get furloughed, because the determination of who stays in at the job and those who don't is determined by the White House. And the Biden administration will do the absolute best they can to punish conservatives. So you could wind up with Border Patrol being furloughed or or their staffing cut in half. That's the problem with the government shutdown. And I've gone through 2 of them, and if that's the way we're going to go, that's where we're going to go. But what the 30-day bill to fund the government does for you is it gives you the time then to finish the rest of your appropriations bills. And like I said, we're taking up 4, hopefully this week, and we'll work through the weekend to get those out.
If you get,
and then try to get the other 8.
If you get those 4 appropriated, at least over to, well, I guess what happens then? You have to go to conference committee with the Senate because the money's not going to match, right?
Yeah, the Senate's already got. I mean, Schumer knows what he's going to do, and he thinks he's going to force McCarthy and us into doing some omnibus bills, and we're not going to do it. So
if you get those
shut down, if it gets shut down, it will be Schumer that shuts it down.
All right, hold on for just a moment. Gary Palmer's with us. I want him to hold his thought. Congressman Palmer's from the 6th Congressional District of Alabama, and for our purposes here in Middle Tennessee, more importantly, he is a part of the leadership team that is trying to formulate an action plan with many conservative holdouts in the Republican Party who do not want to see a continuing resolution. Gary is offering a counter argument as to why that is the best plan of action moving forward. It's 2:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ladies and gentlemen, particularly gentlemen, the Tennessee Men's Clinic has 2 locations to serve you guys and really gals. If you are married to a guy in his middle age and you've noticed a lack of energy, you've noticed more of a lack of motivation, maybe you've noticed he seems tired and or grumpy at times where he used not to be tired and or grumpy, needs more afternoon naps. If any of these is the case, then it might be certain levels within his body, including his T level, that have been affected over time. Naturally, some of those levels go down, but you can lift them back up in a natural way as well through the Tennessee Men's Clinic, which is what it's all about. They have successfully treated thousands of men at their clinics, both the one in Midtown Nashville and the one in Franklin Cool Springs that's been open for about 6 months or so now. If you've been feeling tired or grumpy, if your guy's been feeling tired or grumpy, if you've noticed a decrease in energy levels, then it's time to get checked out. It's a simple procedure. It won't take you long. It took me about an hour and a half to get all of my numbers back. And it could take even less time than that. Give them a call and schedule an appointment today, 615-208-9090. 208-9090 or TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
Freddie O'Connell, officially the mayor of Nashville. A debate between two United States governors set. Those stories coming up, 2:30, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. It is 2:26. A few more moments with Gary Palmer, who is head of the policy committee for the Republican Party caucus in the House of Representatives and represents District Number 6 in the state of Alabama, and is a good friend and a good friend of the show. Gary, where do you think all of this goes? What's the plan from now until Friday in terms of meeting with some that are frustrated, don't want a continuing resolution in your own party, and seeing if there's a path forward? What's the game plan?
I think we're pretty close maybe on getting the continuing resolution. And for the record, for your listeners, I don't think I've ever voted for a continuing resolution because it's always been about a dollar value. This one's different because it has the Secure the Border Act in it. So it's not just a continuing resolution. And I think the arguments over and this is congressional speak, but what the top line number is, and I think we're pretty close on that. So, and I've been working, talking to different members about how to get that number down to where our folks can support it.
For those saying no CR, and they're being pretty emphatic about it, what do you think they need in order to move on that? Because, I listened to Congressman Tim Burchett, who's from here in Tennessee. He just says, no, let's balance the budget. It's time to break the cycle. You're a physical hawk, Gary. I know you a long time, but I also appreciate your perspective. What exactly changes them from a no CR to agreeing to vote on the CR, or do you know yet?
Well, there's not enough time before the end of the fiscal year to do what some of them want to do. So
well, I don't understand what, and I don't mean to necessarily speak for them, but why do you not then just shut it down, accept the consequences of the shutdown, recognizing that time was wasted? You mentioned the recess. Perhaps there was not an anticipation that there would be this level of infighting, but that's water under the bridge. Why not accept that you get done what you possibly can get done, let the government shut down, compelling the House to work even harder and faster to get the bills passed that we need to fund government?
Well, first of all, when they talk about a balanced budget, the Budget Committee, I think, has a legitimate budget that balances in 10 years. You're not going to get to a balanced budget in 1 year without enormous pain. And I'm talking about for everybody. But we can get to a balanced budget. And I've been working on that with the Budget Chairman, Jody Arrington from Texas. We can also get our debt to GDP back down to a manageable level, but that's going to take 14 or 15 years. There's a way to do it. What we're talking about is not a budget. It's appropriations. And what we're trying to do is come in below what's been spent before. And the arguments over the discretionary part of the budget, almost 70% of 70% of our funding goes for entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and interest on the debt. Only about 30% or less is even discretionary, and where we're moving would cut that by about 7 to 8%. So we're reducing spending. But again, when we get back to the CR, this is not a typical continuing resolution because it's legislative in the sense that it forces the Senate to consider our bill to secure the border. And that's what I'm trying to get across to people, but it also addresses spending, but just for 30 days.
I mean, but do you really believe that? I mean, because it seems, hearing you, and maybe I'm mishearing, but if you get the CR done and you get the border security bill to the Senate, the government will still shut down because the Senate will not consider it, but it places the blame on the Democrats at that point. Do you think that will resonate with the American people?
I do, because of the border. I mean, you've got Democrats out there now. The mayor of Dallas just switched to the Republican Party. You've got the Democrat mayor of El Paso who is publicly saying the administration has done nothing to help them, and they're in a crisis mode. You've got you had AOC and Gerald Nadler and some of the other Democrats tried to hold a press conference outside the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City where they're processing the immigrants, and they got shouted down. People are fed up. They're scared to death of what's coming across the border, and they should be. This is the issue. Now, we've got to secure the border, and I think the bill that we have that will force Schumer to decide between shutting down the government or shutting down the border, I think that's one that we can win. But if we pass appropriations bills that balance the budget this year, it will never pass the Senate.
Okay, and I just want to make sure, and I'm running late, and Mac Morris needs to do the news, but just to make sure that people understand, the suggestion is to give the House 30 more days to pass the individual appropriations. You're not going to bundle them. You're going to pass them individually. And in the meantime, you're going to kick one of the appropriations to the Senate that includes the border security. That includes the CR. Here's the thing. If it's not really a continuing resolution, it's just giving you more time. Is there any other thing we can call it? Because I think that is frustrating people because we've seen these continuing resolutions for so many years.
Yeah, we're having that discussion on the floor. I've had a number of members come to me and say, why can't we call something else? And I said, we can. It is a legislative bill. It's not your typical continuing resolution because it includes the legislation to secure the border. It is totally different from any other CR that I've been a part of since I've been there. And like I said, I don't think I've ever voted for a continuing resolution.
Well, it's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons I appreciate talking with you because I know you're a fiscal hawk. I know that it bothers you, the overspending. I also understand where you are in terms of attempting to talk to rank and file in favor of trying to come to some sort of compromise with the leadership. Gary, thank you for your time today, and we'll do it again very soon. Very informative.
Well, we miss you in Alabama, Matt.
Well, miss you guys too, and we'll see you and Miss Ann very soon. There's Gary Palmer, Congressman in the 6th Congressional District. Back in a moment on Super Talk.
"33 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 85 degrees, a sunny day on Music Row. We got a full weather forecast headed your way in 2 minutes. Freddie O'Connell is officially mayor of Nashville. Channel 4's Ryan Breslin reports there was a private swearing-in ceremony this morning.
Mayor Freddie O'Connell says today will be a lot of onboarding, getting Metro Nashville email back, and administrative processes going forward. But key staffing announcements will come very soon, and he says he'll work over the next 100 days to get roles filled.
And the inauguration is this Saturday at 11:30 a.m. at City Hall Park. And runner-up Alice Rowley joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show. And when asked if she had hope for Freddie's tenure, she said that she did. She said even though that they didn't win, it was important for Republicans to get some facts out there and confront some things up front. And it appears to be happening. There is a date set for a debate between Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom of California and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. Alex Stone.
It had turned into almost an ongoing joke. Two outspoken, nationally known governors of two massive states who were polar opposites on the political spectrum debating each other. Gavin Newsom telling Fox's Sean Hannity,
I'm all in. Count on it.
You would do a 2-hour debate with Ron DeSantis.
I would make it 3.
But it wasn't really clear if it was just all talk. Newsom and DeSantis had done a lot of talking about it. Now Fox announcing Hannity will moderate a 90-minute debate between Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom on November 30th in Georgia. The rules of the debate are not yet known.
And a GOP Republican debate is this Wednesday on Fox News. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is National One Hit Wonder Day in the United States. I have no idea who created this designation. I don't know. I have no idea why it's today. But it is, and we celebrate with great tunes like that. And you never heard from those people again. 615-737-9986. We'd love to hear from you, either via the telephones or the super text line. I've been remiss to jump on the super text line today, and I apologize for that. We've had a very busy day, what with Gary Palmer on. We had Scott Desjardins earlier today, fourth congressional representative, and Alice Rowley, former candidate for mayor of Nashville, giving her thoughts on the race that was and what to make of Nashville, Tennessee, and American cities more broadly. You know, Republicans all across the country are demanding that we see more coverage, as much coverage as possible, of the disastrous border crisis that's going on. I saw a statistic last night, maybe it was this morning, that the latest data shows that Joe Biden broke his own record. Joe Biden's immigration department, Joe Biden's border patrol, Joe Biden's Office of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security allowed 11,000 illegal aliens to flood into the country in one 24-hour period. Those are the ones that were seen, not unseen. That beats the record of 10,000 last week. They are flooding in, and they're flooding in from everywhere. Meantime, the federal government is heading toward a government shutdown, potentially, that may disrupt certain services. Social Security checks are exempt. They go out. Other functions, however, will be curtailed. And we were talking with Gary Palmer about that. It seems to me that the impasse is over whether or not to give them an additional 30 days to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish with the 12 separate bills. 12 separate appropriations bills. I do not hear, I'm just reporting the news. I do not hear any Republicans suggesting that they're going to package those bills together in an omnibus, which is where all of the pork, well, not all, some of the pork comes from. So they're attempting to push 4 of the 12 appropriations this week, the 4 most appropriate or the 4 most important, and leave the other 8 for later. Those that are in favor of a government shutdown say, let's get everything we can do done now, shut it down, and that will create an impetus on our part to save more money and put a crunch on the Democrats. Here's the problem. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with doing something different. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That was Einstein's definition, at least. I understand the point that an Andy Ogles made this morning on Nashville's Morning News, that Desjardins made to a certain degree on my show earlier, that I've heard Matt Gaetz make. But explain to me the end game of the Democrats caving. Explain to me how they cave. Democrats don't care if you suffer. That's the problem. We're not them. They can survive 1,000 cuts plus one. And they don't care if the American people suffer as a result. They claim to. Their goal is to lay blame. If you're dealing with a kamikaze pilot that doesn't care if they die in the battle, you have to play the battle a little differently in order to survive. And that's what the Republicans deal with. So I appreciate a shutdown, and I don't have any problem with it. I'm a chaos man. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see the reaction to it. I'd love to see what happens in the aftermath. But understand, any of you that are concerned about the pain that goes in with the government shutdown, the Democrats do not care one bit about that pain unless it provides them political advantage. And they have a compliant media that will consistently blame the Republicans no matter what happens. So on one side, you've got the suggestion that we should pass what you can pass. Once the 30th comes, shut it down until you get the rest of the appropriations passed. A questioner wants to know if the government shuts down, will the military? Let me help you. Let me help you guys understand. As I understand what a government shutdown would look like, when no federal funding legislation is enacted, federal agencies are directed to stop what is called all non-essential work. Lawmakers have to pass 12 separate appropriations bills. And sadly, over the years that I've been doing talk radio, more than half, I don't even know if it's not 3/4 of the time. They don't. They just pass a continuing resolution to allow the government to keep operating because they can't manage to do their budgets on time or otherwise. Any employee that's deemed, quote, essential. Examples, law enforcement, obviously, air traffic control. I would suggest to you that border security would be essential services, but Gary Palmer believes that border security would be used as a pawn and that the White House would direct no border security on the southern border at a time of a government shutdown and then blame the Republicans. What the leadership argues is if everyone in the House would give them an additional 30 days, that would give them the time to pass the separate appropriations bills. And in doing so, they would pass an appropriations bill that secured or that further funded border security to the point that if the Democrats defeated it in the Senate, they could then point the fingers and blame the Senate for the government shutdown. Obviously, millions of federal workers would be affected by a shutdown. I believe military paychecks would be put on hold, but all of those people are always made whole. So understand, there might be some temporary concern or some temporary frustration or might cause you to dip into your savings if you're a federal employee. But federal employees are always made whole during these shutdowns. Nearly 60% of all federal workers, I just looked this up, are stationed in the Department of Defense, Veterans Affairs, or Homeland Security. And roughly 2 million military personnel and more than 2 million civilian workers across the nation would not receive paychecks. And then there's the after effects of a government shutdown, which, once again, Washington, D.C. always overstates the impact of a government shutdown. Always. So the military would not get paid, to answer your question, 3928, the military would not get paid in the immediate term, but they would get paid in the long term. OO76 says military paychecks are not put on hold. It's my understanding that they have been in the past. They might not be. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Because it changes from source material to source material as to what's going to be withheld and what won't be withheld.
I've got a report from Karen Travers on some of that information.
Give it to me. Let's go.
Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack is warning about the real consequences nearly 7 million mothers and children who rely on the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program known as WIC. So there's a contingency fund that might continue the funding for a day or two so states could have leftover benefits to send out. But if there is a shutdown, there could be a denial in a lot of those opportunities, and it would be within a matter of days that those would just stop. And the White House says that WIC serves nearly half of babies born in the United States.
So the food stamp program would shut down. I'm getting conflicting reports on what a disruption would mean for paychecks for the military. The military's always made whole again, by the way.
Doesn't the executive branch have decision-making
They
power
have discretionary.
over what is essential?
Yes, and that's possibly why I'm getting two different stories from my sources.
I don't believe the WIC thing, though. I don't believe the SNAP program is going to shut down because it's not being used that heavily because Bidenomics is kicking ass.
Well, that's right. I mean, why would we need a supplemental nutritional assistance program or a food stamp program which is what we used to call it, when Bidenomics is doing so well and the food prices are so low at the grocery store. I mean, come on. I get it. It's one of those situations where I understand that the leadership is trying to play. They're trying to play loose with this, and they feel like if they can get their party in line, they can kick the blame back to the Democrats. I don't believe the media. I don't believe the mainstream press. I don't think that many in this country will ever blame the Democrats, even though Joe Biden's in power and the Democrats control the Senate, so they control 2/3 of this process, and the House is just 1/3. I'm going to lean to do as much business as you can do this week, shut it down, do the rest of your business, and you still have the play on the back end of demanding the Senate do something about border security. You still have that as a political football. So, for the record, Murphy, put me on the side of shut it down. It's 2:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
COVID vaccine questions arising at the White House, a lockdown at a Middle Tennessee high school due to more uncredible threats, a fight on the interstate, and the Hollywood writers' strike may be headed in the right direction. That's coming up at 3.
I can't wait. We've missed it. So I'm late. I'm always late. Brian Wilson's there. I want to talk to him, and I'm running always late. I wanted to talk to him about his eyeball. Oh, well, Brian, I love you, and I'm sorry. I guess I'll have to start going at 44 after the hour in order to get through that break so we can get to some conversation. It's on me. It's not anybody's fault but my own. It's my fault that I didn't get to talk to Brian today, and I'm sorry. Brian has a red eyeball.
Yeah, watch it on TV.
Watch it on TV. Go to Super Talk TV and look at this eyeball. You'll want to see it for yourself. It is fascinating. More on The Drive and Brian Wilson coming up in just moments. I'll be back at high noon. Until then, so long.